Hi, everyone. This is Gary Bergman. So I want to start with a survey question. On a scale of 1 to 10, how sad are you that you had this unbelievable introduction and then you just see me sitting here? I've got to find some other cool transition. And I'll show you what I was going to be doing, but I just got back my Cyber Hero custom, from the dry cleaners, and they haven't had a chance to put it on. And the reason I would do something like that is because, one of our goals, besides shining the light on the unsung cyber heroes who toil in anonymity to keep us safe at work, home, and school, is I would love to be a small part of moving this kind of aircraft carrier that is the cybersecurity ecosystem away from fear, uncertainty, doubt, FUD to fun, and I know it's a difficult mission, but I know all of you out there, my audience, have many different ways that you like to have fun. And so our goal today is to have fun with an incredible real life unsung cyber hero, Oren Eytan. Hey, Oren.
Hello.
How you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
Good. We're so glad to see you here today. You're doing some really cool stuff. And the genesis of what we're doing here today was something, incredibly interesting that I happened to hear about recently. But wait a minute, we have some breaking news. Stand by. Forbes, when military cybertech goes mainstream. Any chance you'd be able to offer some context about this breaking news, Oren?
Well, yes. Surprisingly enough, I submitted an article to Forbes recently, and there I described some of the trends that cyber attacks, cyber security, and cyber capabilities. Most of them were started and initiated, in military operations, in Ministry of Defense, and some others agencies uh, in Israel and around the globe. Let's say that uh, people were dealing with cyber and the cyberspace in military and armies much before it diffused to the civilian markets. And one of the reasons for that is that a lot of the armies and military were relied and continue to rely on technology. And once you rely on technology, you're also vulnerable. And these things were discovered 30 and 40 years ago when, we just had the first technological systems in the military service. And then they also, on the other side, start to look for vulnerabilities and how to attack them. So what we were evident in the last few years is that a lot of the knowledge that was gained in the military service and in defense service and other operations is leaking to the private market in a way that this capability, in order to enhance some of the defense capabilities, on the other hand, also some of the offense capabilities.
Well, for our audience who may not be familiar with kind of the legacy and the history of Israel's technology ecosystem and cybersecurity, can you just take us back a little bit, like the founding of the IDF? You were one of the leaders, of it, and this was in 1948, and the service is mandatory. Can you help our audience understand a little bit about that background and the culture that you have?
I'm not that old that I was the establisher of the Israel Defense Forces in 1948. I'm not that far away from it, but Israel was established in 1948, so is the Israel Defense Forces. And one of the first things that Israel realized in the very early days that the Israel Defense Forces should also has the technology on his side. So the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, and all the forces usually were investigated a lot in R&D, and Israel spent a lot of resources in R&D in all technology fields and all technology efforts because we realize and understand that technology can give you a good edge, over your enemy. So since the starting point of the Israeli army, there's a lot of technology entities in the IDF that actually promoting these efforts. Um, I would say that in 1973, during Yom Kippur War, that Israel was surprised and shocked. Then it was a shift, even let's say more technology, because we understood this. If we don't want to be surprised, then we need to even invest even more in technology in all kinds. I mean, in all kinds. It's not only cybersecurity, but for communication, for fighting, Air Force, Navy, for you name it.
Well, and also, from what I understand, the government invested a lot in research and development and public-private partnerships, and collectively created this kind of culture of collaboration. Is that valid?
Oh yeah, Israel is known as the startup nation, and there is a reason for that because, as you mentioned, the government also support startups and initiative in all fields. So in back in few years ago, it was called the chief scientist of the government, the finance ministry, the chief scientist of the finance ministry. They used to support these startups. So you could have a startup, you get a first finance, to have your first feet on the ground. Now it's called the Israeli Innovation Authority. They're doing the same thing, but they encourage, entrepreneur to do their first steps with startups, not be afraid, to launch, a company and to start building an idea, starting in a garage with two people, and then Israel now, at least in the cybersecurity, there are several unicorns that were grown in Israel, and they're still moving ahead. It's also as a result of the military service that a lot of the Israelis are, it's a mandatory in Israel. They are going to all the technology units. They get a lot of knowledge, and in fact, they need to face a lot of very advanced technological challenges among the service. So once they went out of the military service, they got a lot of ideas, and they are full of ideas to implement and to do things, and the government really supported. So that's why you show the list of startups in Israel. I think currently only in the cyberspace there are over 400 cybersecurity companies. I mean, that's amazing. Of course, with if you take it per capita for the number for the population of Israel. So this is incredible, and this is an industry.
Oh
This
yeah,
is
I was
this is
just
a profession. This
Yeah.
is a profession.
Forgive the interruption. I just learned, and you can maybe tell me if this is valid or not, that somewhere in the neighborhood of 40% of spending on cybersecurity, on global cybersecurity, is to Israeli companies. Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely. Because you are familiar with the checkpoint. You're familiar with some of the giants, but there are also many other companies that are doing very well, and they penetrate their way in the cybersecurity. And Israeli products, Israeli cybersecurity products are well known around the globe. I mean, if you need to choose a product and you need to in the cybersecurity, I assume that you would prefer an Israeli product because you say, well, these guys really know what they do. They have a lot of experience. They probably tested it and used it before, and so there's a huge acceptance of the Israeli technology in the cybersecurity arena for all types of cyber products.
Well, here's an interesting example that I came across. Of course, this is the famous Iron Dome, technology. Can you tell us a little bit, about that without revealing, anything too confidential?
Well, the Iron Dome is a very sophisticated systems that can down missiles when on the fly. It involves several technologies like radars, advanced radars, and so on. And so we are able to track the missile on his way, and then do the right calculation and shut it down. So it is one of the, I think, the greatest achievements of the technology, because it's mostly, let's say, a real-time challenge. I mean, probably, if you have a lot of time, you can do a lot of calculations and so on. But when the missile is on the way and you need to do everything in real time, this is the real challenge. And this system is delivering. I mean, is doing the job and very well. And if we need, adaptations and so on. So the Israeli industry, the defense industry, are able to do that. It was also a joint venture of several industries in Israel, like the Israeli aerospace industry, IAI, and Rafael and Elbit all together. So it's a kind of a national project for Israel.
Can you tell our audience again, without revealing anything confidential, about your role at the IDF and cybersecurity? I mean, what was a typical day like? Is there such a thing?
Okay, I retired from the IDF as a colonel. I was the head of the cybersecurity unit. So, in fact, I was responsible to protect the Israel Defense Forces infrastructure
Wow.
against cyber attacks. So you wake up in the morning for cyber alarm, and doing all day thinking about how you can be one step ahead of everyone that can think of attacking you and trying to penetrate your system and put the right things in the right places. Um, Fortunately enough,
Oren, I think you froze here a little bit.
oh,
Oh, there we go. Okay. Well, as soon as you started talking about Israeli cybersecurity, I mean, I look, I'm not paranoid. I'm just saying that was quite a coincidence.
Maybe it's a sensor, right?
Well, so well, we make sure to get all this cool stuff in mind. I have to tell you, with no, I don't do any marketing of our show or anything yet, and just by putting the announcement that you were going to be on the show, we've had over 3,000 views of just the announcement that you were going to be on the show. Which is quite extraordinary, and this is amongst a high level group of people. I had recently someone just do a little analysis of my LinkedIn connections, and the people that watch our show and that interact with our unbelievable thought leaders are big people. Why do you think you and the subject of military technology into the private sector is so compelling to people?
I think it's a fascinating subject. I think that today everyone is aware of cybersecurity. When people hear almost every day about successful cyber attack, you hear about SolarWinds and what happened with the penetration to SolarWinds, and people really like to first of all understand what happened there, and second, they want to do their own assessment whether they are the next one that this thing will happen to them. So they really would like to gain some knowledge from experienced guys and to really kind of understand what's going on, because also with you see the COVID-19, with the coronavirus, also it's people are trying and want to learn all the time what's going on. And they really like to learn because there is a strong impact on everyone personally. The same is in cybersecurity. I mean, it's a strong impact on everyone, either as a person or as a one in organization or any other entity that you can think about. So there's always the passion to learn, to understand, and now people realize that it's a real threat. So it's fascinating, how it can be done, how easily it can be done, and what can be done in order to protect yourself,
Well,
which is more important.
Yeah, excuse the interruption. That's a very interesting segue. You were kind enough to send me something that caught my attention, your marketing team. And so I'm going to share an interesting little animation, which of course, we produce superhero comics and animations. And we're actually working with an Israeli cybersecurity firm. Here's the scoop. They're called Newledge, and they're bringing our characters to life in 3 dimensions. So I want to show our audience something cool that you guys do.
This is Jane, a sales director. Jane doesn't know it yet, but in a few seconds, she will click an innocent-looking file that will trigger an unfortunate chain of events. Within seconds, the malicious code outbreak throughout the company's network, infecting other computers on its way to encrypt any server stand in its way. Indeed, not a good day for Jane. This is Jane. She doesn't know it yet, but in a few seconds, nothing is going to happen. All thanks to Jeff. This is Jeff, the IT guy. Luckily, Jeff activated the Firewall service for Microsoft 365 Mail that disarms any malicious code hidden inside standard attachments. With Firewall, Jane can safely open malware-free attachments. Firewall is available for 30 days free trial at the Microsoft AppSource Marketplace. Get it now. It's only 3 clicks away.
So my first question about that is, what made you decide to do an animation about such a serious topic?
We think it's a very good question because we think that we should make the cyberspace and cybersecurity, which people think it's very complicated, a lot of math involved, algorithms and so on. We should make it accessible, to everyone, and we want to make it as you are trying to do, also make it in a fun way, and not very serious with equations and so on. So we were looking for a kind of a way to do it that it will talk to everyone and everyone will understand and everyone will be capable to really understand that. First, sometimes unintentionally you can cause damage to your organization, and people with any malicious intention can do that. And then we also wanted to show how easy it is to deploy and implement our firewall that can protect against a lot of cyber attacks. In this case, is in email for Microsoft 365 users. So we think that if we can make a story that will be accessible and understandable by all people, it can help us deliver the statement that you would like to deliver.
Well, that's very interesting because, also part of, my mission, like you said, is to distill complicated cybersecurity technology information into something that the rest of the world can get their heads around at least a little bit. And that would apply to a large enterprise, a small to medium business, the government. It would apply to anyone. So, one of the things we're doing shortly is we're going to be sponsoring some really interesting research, some academic research that did a meta-analysis and longitudinal pre and post behavioral changes of using fear as a motivator to change, cybersecurity behavior and the efficacy of it. So that'll be something we'll release shortly with interesting team. I want to talk a little bit more about your actual solution. So can you share with our audience what do you mean by true CDR, and what is CDR?
Okay, first of all, CDR stands for Content, Disarm, and Reconstruction. This is a name that turned by Gartner, the analyst company Gartner, and they set a new category for, let's say, sanitizing files. Namely, we disarm malware from files, and that's how the name came, Content, Disarm, and Reconstruction. But I usually like better to describe what we're doing as a deep file inspection. This is more understandable. So you can imagine that what we do, that we take the file, we break the files to its smallest components, and then we start to analyze each component at a time and make sure this component is valid or not valid, is malicious or not malicious. And once we analyze all the components, then we reconstruct the file again and make it, a safe file, make it a malware-free file, fully functional, wow, and you are able to use it. So
just for all files, it doesn't matter the format?
Well, it does matter because we have specific algorithms for specific file types. The most common file types that are used by hackers are Office files, PDF files, image files, audio files, archive files. For all these type of files, we got our own algorithms to do this through CDR. And with a lot of success, because none of our customers have been compromised. They suffer cyber attacks, but none of them was compromised.
Wow.
And it's really my pride as a security guy, to say that.
Is this part of what one of the kind of the attack vectors for SolarWinds? From what I understand, there were some compromises with Microsoft email, possibly. Can you help our audience understand that a little bit?
With SolarWinds, I should say, first of all, it was a very complicated attack. It seems that first they were able to penetrate into SolarWinds network. Once they did that, they were able to control the software updates that were distributed to all their customers. So you can imagine now that a piece of software come out from SolarWinds, nobody suspect this piece of software and distribute it to all the customers. But the hackers were, sophisticated enough to get into SolarWinds network and to put their piece of malware within a legit software update. That's the way they did it. Now, they use the product that they choose is called Orion. Orion is a kind of remote control product and monitoring product. So in order to do the software updates, SolarWinds recommend their customers to disable the antivirus because it's a remote monitoring. So maybe the antivirus will decide that this is kind of malicious.
Right.
The legit operation, it will decide. They said, okay, turn off the antivirus when you do the update. So you can see, and this is also characterized a lot of cyber attacks, that very sophisticated. They take advantage of several, domains in order to create their cyber attack. And in this case, they were very successful.
Well, let me ask you your perspective on what is sometimes referred to as hacking back, or offensive, cyber weapons here in the United States. There was a policy, issued about that. It's not something that, many people, talk publicly about. What is your perspective on offensive cyber weapons, realizing that this is live and people are going to watch this? So,
Well, there's a lot of companies that also doing cyber offense. In the article that I have in Forbes, I also described that also in the cyber offense there was a leak from the military to private market, and if about cybersecurity, there's no doubt that it's essential and everyone needs it, and it's legit and it's there. Cyber offense is a little bit more dangerous, and the reason is that it can fall to the wrong hands, and some people can do things that you really don't want them to happen. So it's a product, a type of product that should be under more control because it has a lot of capabilities. There are some basic, let's say, kits, cyber attacks kits that you can get in the dark net and so on. But but there are also some offense cyber companies that provide kind of, everyone heard about NSO and other companies that.
Was that the Pegasus? The Pegasus?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, the Pegasus. So this is one company. There are some other companies that doing stuff like this, and it is when it's for good cause and for good circumstances, then it's very powerful. You can do a lot of things. The issue is that should be under sort of control.
Well, what maybe you can help our audience, understand your perspective, about that. How does one? What is the framework? It has to be some global, like a treaty, that certain things are, sort of okay in the area of, espionage or things. But what happens when it actually affects critical infrastructure, or has real life kinetic consequences? I mean, what's your perspective, or does Israel have a public policy, about these things?
Yeah, Israel has a national institute that it's under the Prime Minister office that is dealing with all the cyber security, and I think that the internet is a global resource, and in fact, there's no geographic borders for the internet. And it seems that also a lot of countries already connected together and contribute to each other. And we'll see more and more in the future that it will be kind of a global effort and global data transfer between defenders and cybersecurity agencies. Because if you got attacked in one place in the globe, you can suffer from this attack next day on the other side of the globe. So you better share this information with all your colleagues.
Well,
So
one of the interesting things that I've learned through this experience is that the criminals are kind of horizontally oriented. They share information, very, very freely, as you said, through the dark web. But the defenders are much more vertically, siloed, in part because of intellectual property and monetization and government regulations and things like that. And I happen to be very fortunate to connect with the ISACs, the information sharing and analysis centers, and we've done some interesting things with the IT ISAC, the health ISAC. We're in discussions with the auto ISAC to do a custom comic called "Defending Your Wheels," about autonomous vehicles and all the different cybersecurity aspects of that. What would you advise our audience about sharing information? Yeah.
Well, I think that that's where the world is going, because people really understand that everywhere in the world gaining more and more knowledge about data, some cyber breaches and vulnerabilities, and it will be for the benefit of all of us that it will be collaboration with the data that gathered, all over the world, and it's very important. And I think there are some international entities like the CERT and other entities that combining together many countries and many efforts and a lot of capabilities for many organizations. And I think that also the cybersecurity companies should, contribute to these efforts, even though they're private companies. But once a few weeks ago, we discovered a phishing attack that hackers were hiding this phishing within an attachment of an email with a URL, and nobody recognized this phishing and this fake URL. We were able to do it, to analyze it with firewall with our product, and we instantaneously we reported on it to all the databases that actually holds the links and the fake links and the blacklist, and also. So I think once also the cyber security companies also will drive these databases and contribute to this. It will be for the benefit of the world, and I think we are in this direction.
Well, on that upbeat note, is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience to amplify your message?
Well, as one that over 30 years working in cybersecurity, I think the name of the game is thinking out of the box. So try to be always, step ahead and try to think out of the box and try to really uh, uh, don't sleep and don't fall asleep.
Well, on that note, how does our audience get more information about you and some of the cool stuff that you're doing?
Well, they can, of course, visit our website at odi-x.com. They can reach me through the LinkedIn. I'm available, and just a minute. And so this is it.
Okay. Well, on behalf of a grateful digital universe, Oren, thanks for being a real life unsung cyber hero, and keep up the great work. And we thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Gary. Thank you.
Welcome.